Folks, thanks for coming on the line with us today. We'll be spending the next 45 minutes to an hour discussing chronic special needs programs and the ability that an insurance agent has to market these programs on a year-round basis. These are programs that came about as part of legislation from 2003 in the Medicare Modernization Act that set up a new type of Medicare managed care program focused on certain vulnerable groups of Medicare beneficiaries. And these are usually set up on a network-based program, a platform such as an HMO or PPO type of delivery system, and is tailored for a specific group's needs. To qualify as a SNP program, there has to be a specific care program detailed out to deal with the unique challenges of these particular conditions, and that is reflected in not only the setup of the plan benefits, but also the drug formularies and the providers that are part of the programs as well. There are actually 3 different types of Medicare special needs plans created by that legislation back in 2003, and they focus on 3 different areas: people with certain illnesses, people in certain living circumstances, and people with certain financial concerns. In the chronic SNP area, there are programs set up for a whole number of illnesses that are chronic in nature and that a person may encounter during their lifetime. Just because there are programs set up for a particular illness doesn't mean there's one available in every area. And also, just because it's set up in any of these SNP type programs doesn't necessarily mean that it's available for the independent broker channel to market either. In the chronic SNP area, where you see the most commonly offered programs are those that deal with the cardiovascular system and with diabetes. Those are the programs we see most commonly throughout the country. There is an institutional SNP that is available in certain markets, and this is based for people who are in an institution requiring a certain care at home. In a lot of the markets, this is handled only by a captive sales force and is not available to the broker channel. And if you're living in the great state of Texas, where we sit right now, and we're doing some things specific for Texas, there's not one available for sale through the broker channel at this time. One of the things to take a little bit of comfort in is the fact that the institutional SNP normally, it doesn't apply to every nursing home, every institution. The network that is set up for these programs deal with one specific location for the most part, and so it's not as broad scale as an opportunity that you think you might be missing out on in the first place. And then, of course, there are the dual eligible SNP programs, the D-SNPs, in which the recipient or the eligible prospect has both Medicare and Medicaid, hence the dual eligibility. We'll spend our time today, the vast majority of it, on discussions of the chronic SNP programs. Simplest way to find out what is available in your area, to give you an idea of what you might sell and what you might sell against, is go to Medicare.gov, punch in some specifics for an area, and refine your plan results to see what programs that are there, and then further refine it into the selection of special needs plans. And this will pull a number of programs for you that are available in your area. As you note, 2 different programs that we look at, it mentions all 3 institutional included special needs plans. The ones that are available for us to sell deal with the chronic SNPs and the D-SNP programs, and that's what we're pulling here. It's really important to note that as we go through and we look at these different programs that come available, is we check the differences and the similarities between the programs. A lot of the appeal of the programs deal with the extra benefits, the things that the plans will do for the beneficiary that aren't available with traditional Medicare, many cases with traditional Medicare and the supplement program, and the fact we also need to examine the network in great detail, providers, all providers, including not just the doctors, the primary care doctors and the specialists, or even the hospitals, just the hospitals. We need to also look at people who deliver care through home health care services and through durable medical equipment, because when you deal with the chronically ill, those are of even greater concern than with the general Medicare population. Another thing to consider when you look to market one program over another or focus on one particular program is the type of carrier support that you get from the company that you are contracting with and representing. One of the carriers that we partner with very closely here at the brokerage is a United Healthcare subsidiary of Care Improvement Plus. This program is available for agents who contract with the United Healthcare Medicare and Retirement contract. So it's that same contract that gives you access to the ARP Medicare Complete programs, the dual SNP programs through United Healthcare Community and Retirement, and also the ARP PDP programs, Part D plans, and the ARP MedSup programs. All of the subsidiaries with United Healthcare are placed under that same contract, and so we'll spend a bit of time talking about Care Improvement Plus and some of the specifics that they have for their chronic SNP programs. They offer two types of programs in certain states: the chronic special needs programs, those that are for folks in this circumstance with diabetes or heart failure, and then they also offer a dual SNP plan for those that are Medicare and full Medicaid recipients. To enroll into one of the United Healthcare chronic condition SNPs, your prospect must be entitled to Medicare Part A and be enrolled in Medicare Part B. And they have to have one or more of the specified chronic conditions, such as diabetes, chronic heart failure, CHF, cardiovascular disorders such as coronary artery disease, cardiac arrhythmia, peripheral vascular disease, and chronic venous thromboembolic disorder. Say that 5 times really fast. They also have to have that condition verified by a physician. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. Additionally, much like they do in a regular Medicare Advantage plan, they need to reside in a specified service area, and they cannot have end-stage renal disease, even though technically that is a chronic illness that would qualify for a chronic SNP plan. And in the past, you have seen some programs available. In this particular case, it's a kick out, the one health condition that would keep them out of the program. In the state of Texas, Care Improvement Plus is available all year round for the entire state of Texas. We do a lot of our business in the state of Texas, so we dwell on it a wee bit. There are additional service areas in Arkansas, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, in addition to select counties in Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. The thing about a chronic SNP program is, oh gee, John, it's middle of February, we're locked in. Chronic SNP program has an SEP for that illness that can be exercised and therefore make changes available in someone's coverage throughout the year. In order for the program to work, it is, as I mentioned before, based on a network of doctors and hospitals. The Care Improvement Plus program is an open access network, and they can go to any Medicare approved provider who accepts payment from the plan. If you're dealing with the D-SNP program, they've got to accept both Medicare and Medicaid. This is very important because it basically pays off Medicare rates, and it reminds many people of the old private fee-for-service programs that were prevalent a few years ago and of wide appeal, particularly in more rural areas. This plan will pay current Medicare rates to the Medicare or contracted providers, with just a few exceptions. The transportation and pharmacy benefits are limited to a contracted specified network. The doctors and hospitals, that depends upon whether the doctor would agree to the terms of the payment, and hence there's not a set network per se. For the folks that are in this program, they are based on diabetes or heart failure conditions, and they are labeled through either a Silver RX or Gold RX program. That's what the Care Improvement Plus lays out and labels their programs. The diabetes itself is a condition, as you're probably aware, that is characterized by inadequate production or utilization of insulin and results in excessive amounts of glucose in the blood and urine, excessive thirst, weight loss, and in some cases, progressive destruction of small blood vessels. Diabetic neuropathy is a common side effect of this illness. There are millions of people who have been diagnosed with diabetes, and there are a million more who are unaware of their condition. Diabetes itself is the condition that qualifies for someone to qualify for the Silver RX and Gold RX program, and they must have been diagnosed with that illness, and it is to be confirmed by a physician. Heart failure, this is a condition in which the heart fatally ceases to function. Wow, that means we're enrolling dead people, John? No. It's a category where some folks will refer to it as congestive heart failure, and it's a condition where the heart fails to pump adequate amounts of blood to the tissues. And so you have challenges, obviously, that come with that condition. It is not considered to be the same as having had a heart attack or suffering with coronary artery disease, fighting high blood pressure or high cholesterol, hardening of the arteries, or dealing with arrhythmia and irregular heartbeat. For this program to take place or be offered to an individual, that person must be diagnosed with heart failure by a physician. Heart failure is also known as chronic heart failure, congestive heart failure, diastolic heart failure, left-sided heart failure, right-sided heart failure, and systolic heart failure, up, down, east, or west. With us, it's most important as we go through and visit with folks that we create a framework for us to follow, that we access the prospect's needs for a best fit. So in many circumstances, we need to make certain that we first do no harm, and second, look to improve the circumstance of the person that you deal with. When you go into an open enrollment period, you'll look at different conditions, or pardon me, different specifics in a program and see that, well, this has a higher maximum out of pocket, or this copay is different. It's not the same type of benefit structure as a regular MA plan, and it's not. In many circumstances, this is a program that's available in more rural areas too, where the payments to the companies aren't as healthy, and so the benefits aren't quite as robust. But one of the things we need to make certain that we do is compare their current circumstance. We're in a lock-in period, and there are a number of people that we can help with this program, and we review it versus what their current situation is. It can be influenced by their financial situation. If they are a person who is receiving assistance through Medicaid or as a qualified Medicare beneficiary, it's probably not in their best interest to go into a chronic SNP program. A dual SNP program would more likely better suit their needs, and that would influence the choice of programs that that individual should review and entertain as possibilities for coverages moving forward. It is also important to note that if a person has low income subsidy, the assistance on the medication programs, that can have a bearing on their influence as well, because that circumstance will change what they pay for the cost of their medications. Anytime someone has additional assistance through LIS, the copayments that are dictated through the LIS legislation override what the benefits are in the plan. So if the plan itself states that there are 5 tiers, and on tier 3 for a name brand drug, the copayment is $35, and I'm not referring to anything specific in a program from Care Improvement Plus, but if a plan says that for tier 3, that is overridden by the dictates of low-income subsidy, and those copays would be in play instead. So normally $660 instead of the much higher copayment. We also need to look at the different healthcare needs that are part of that individual circumstances, if it's diabetic or cardio, as to what doctors they're currently seeing, and will they accept the program as well, to make certain that we take care of them in an unobtrusive manner as possible, and make certain that if they do change physicians, there are qualified people there to take care of them. And then, of course, a review of the formulary can make a huge difference. There are programs out there that are similar in nature to the number of drugs or the drugs that are part of the formulary, but where they fall on the different tiers without the low-income subsidy support, that can make a huge difference as to their out-of-pocket expenditure when it comes to the cost of the medications. The chronic SNP programs have the premiums will vary from area to area, and it's important to note that if there are LIS considerations, if the plan charges a premium for the prescription portion or for the medical portion, part of that might be subsidized by LIS. And it's also important to note that a true dual beneficiary isn't as concerned with an out-of-pocket maximum that doesn't really apply to them, since Medicaid steps in and takes up the difference, and that can make a huge difference. It's also important to note that if someone has just traditional Medicare and not any additional coverage, traditional Medicare and perhaps a standalone PDP program, they do not have a maximum out-of-pocket limit on their medical costs with just traditional Medicare. And these programs can make a big difference for that concern. Even if they went with a program that had the maximum allowable maximum out-of-pocket limit, in most circumstances, you wouldn't see that over $6,700. And while we might shake our head a little bit and go, wow, $6,700, that's not cheap, it beats the dickens out of 20% that never stops that you have with traditional Medicare. And then, of course, it is influenced as well by any of the associated cost sharing that affects the E&B benefits, and that goes into play for the additional assistance someone might have under a Medicare savings plan. The review of a person's drug benefits is very critical on any Medicare Advantage plan, particularly critical when you're dealing with the chronically ill. Many of these folks are on certain medications that can be quite expensive, and obviously they're on medications they take all the time. So it's very important to review the medications that they take, look and see if there is the possibility of assistance on low-income subsidy outside of the plan itself. Take that into account with the coverages that are available to them, and review that formulary and look and see where a drug falls in the tiers that are part of that drug listing. Because as I mentioned, a drug covered in Tier 1 on a program is a big difference on an out-of-pocket expenditure versus a Tier 3 or a Tier 5. One of the things that you'll see too is a difference in drug coverages through the drug gap, and it's very important for us to review that coverage, and also recall that if someone does have a full low-income subsidy benefit, they don't encounter that coverage gap. They continue to pay their LIS copay levels through the gap. For those without that assistance, there's some changes in 2016 where if they reach the coverage gap in 2016, they'll pay 45% of the plan's cost for covered name brand prescriptions. And they'll get these savings if they buy the prescriptions at a pharmacy or order them through the mail. The discount will come off the price of the plans that have been set with that pharmacy for that specific medication. So these are negotiated prices with the carrier and the provider of that medication. When you get into some of the additional assistance on that, you'll note that they'll only pay 45% of the price of the name brand drug in 2016, with 95% of the price, what you pay plus the manufacturer discount, will count as out-of-pocket cost which will help that individual work their way through the coverage gap, through the donut hole. And what the drug plan pays toward that drug cost, about 5% of the price, and what the drug plan pays toward the dispensing fee, about 55% of the fee, these aren't counted as part of that out-of-pocket spending. So remember how drug benefits are laid out, where if it's a base program, they have a deductible to start, and then coverage through the initial coverage period, and when they reach an out-of-pocket amount of about $3,300, they then go into the donut hole. When they reach their true out-of-pocket cost maximum, then they go into the catastrophic care. It's a little bit different numbers when you deal with the generic medications, where Medicare pays 42% of the price of the drugs during the coverage gap in 2016, and the beneficiary is responsible for the remaining 58% of the price. What they pay for the drugs through the coverage gap will decrease each year until it reaches 25% in 2020. That's part of the legislation that brought about the Affordable Care Act. The coverage for generic drugs work differently from the discount for the name brand drugs. For the generic drugs, only the amount that the individual pays will count toward working them through the coverage gap. So a little bit of difference as to how the cost of medications through the coverage gap is applied to the true out-of-pocket cost for the beneficiary. Things that count toward that coverage gap include the yearly deductible, if there is one, co-insurance and co-payments, the discount that you get on the name brand drugs in the coverage gap, and what you pay in the gap. The items that don't count toward that coverage gap are the drug plan premium, if there is one, or the pharmacy dispensing fee, and what to pay for the drugs that aren't covered, non-formulary medications. Now these regulations apply on a chronic program, on a regular Medicare Advantage program, and they apply on a Part D program. We spend additional time on them in discussions about a chronic illness program, a chronic special needs plan, because many times that condition predicates the use of medications in volume and consistency. Some of the things the plans also do, however, are give them some additional benefits and services, such as help with eyeglasses and the routine eye exam. In many cases, help with hearing aids. There are dental programs that come as part of the program. Most of them are just preventative in nature, but some will actually include additional benefits for other services. Many of these programs will include a transportation benefit, somewhere on average between 12 and 60 one-way rides, and also in many circumstances provide care for routine podiatry. If you deal with a diabetic, in many circumstances they have a difficult time in dealing with their feet, and it has special concerns, so regular visits to a podiatrist are a good idea and are covered as part of many of these programs. There are also over-the-counter catalog benefits found in many of the programs in the United Healthcare portfolio with Care Improvement Plus that is available as part of the Silver RX plan, and these programs also typically cover a 24/7 nurse hotline. Some of the things they do additionally, specific to the CIP programs, you have a number of programs that are there to help people maximize the value of the benefits they have. So a lot of times it's very helpful for you not only to know how to drive the car, but also how it handles in certain circumstances. The pharmacist program, the nurse care management program, house calls, social service coordinators, the transition of care and member services programs will all be explained here in the following slides. The pharmacist, PharmAssist, consists of a network of specialist pharmacists who deliver personalized private counseling to individuals. They do a review of the medications to make certain that they're working to their full potential. They confirm they're being taken as prescribed, and they look to avoid interactions or other side effects. We have a lot of times advertisements on TV that will say, oh, come to our pharmacy, we'll help to make certain that you don't take drugs that fight each other, in a manner of speaking. if that individual accesses medication at multiple pharmacies, it doesn't work that well. So this is a nice plan benefit where they have the pharmacists that help to do that, educate the individuals and overlook drug interactions. So they offer that different education and support. You keep in mind, some of these people who have chronic conditions, they'll take a dozen or so medications, and this program helps make managing those medications safer, easier, and less costly. The nurse care management section of this makes certain that the members get the right care at the right time, so they have that 24/7 nurse hotline. They engage in coaching calls and help with care coordination. And you'll see a lot of times people with different chronic illnesses have more than one chronic illness. So they'll see a number of doctors and specialists in different areas, and these nurse managers help to make certain that the providers are all on the same page. House Calls is a program that is really cool, kind of unique to many of the United Healthcare programs, where they actually schedule an in-person visit with either a physician or a nurse practitioner who provides a health assessment. United Healthcare is the second largest employer of nurse practitioners in the country, behind the VA, and they use these professionals to go in and gather information about additional health education and help coordinate the care. They can help identify urgent health problems or risk and provide advice to the people they visit with on the different topics that they can bring to discuss with their regular doctor. It's also a great way for folks to be reminded to do some of the simple things that many of us know of and kind of put off in many circumstances. The well visits, the well care, so to speak, where you do your annual physical, a reminder to do that. Have you done your flu shot? A number of programs that are reinforced by the house call visit, either with a physician or a nurse practitioner. For United Healthcare, there are programs available with this benefit throughout multiple states. It's the gray ones that don't have this benefit ingrained in it yet, but you'll see the majority of the states in our country have this, where they have a United Healthcare plan available. Social Service Coordinators is a organization that helps people get additional assistance for their different expenses should they qualify for it through other programs of which they may be unaware. So this helps them get assistance in paying for prescriptions. So preaches the gospel, so to speak, of the low-income subsidy. If that isn't enough help, they also look for charitable assistance. They also look for energy assistance programs, help with DNA and meal delivery programs, a number of different things that help the individual deal with their illness and the expenses that it incurs and the drain that it has on their monthly budget and their just ability to live a fairly regular life because of the cost brought on by their health condition. So it might even include heating or telephone or rent subsidies, some different helps programs for the folks that are of lower income. Transitions of care is very important, and this is a benefit that helps bridge gaps between treatment. It ensures the continuity of care, helps prevent hospital readmissions, and keeps all the different caregivers and providers informed of a member's health status. So it puts people all on the same page and helps them through the recovery and then enduring the day-to-day treatment of their illness. Member support services also proactively outreaches to the membership and informs of important health issues such as flu vaccinations, pneumonia vaccinations. The utilization of the benefits helps them if there is a transportation benefit or some of the other important things that a person may not be aware of. A lot of times if you get into chronic illness program as a diabetic, the eye exam is very important to have done on an annual basis. Taking advantage of the podiatrist visits to make certain their feet stay in good order and help explain the explanation of coverage or the annual notification of change that the membership has as well. It's important to note, if you're in the Medicare arena. Half the business is sold outside of the open enrollment period and is a SEP opportunity. So it's an ongoing program, and it's an ongoing opportunity for you. And the chronic illness arena really helps in that regard, since there are so many people that are affected by different types of illnesses that qualify for this assistance. If you look at it, you've got well over a quarter of the folks that are affected by diabetes or heart failure. I don't just slap them together because you might have a diabetic that also has heart failure or vice versa. So it's not really a 44% number, but you have a ton of the folks that are also dual eligible and are in need of your help as well. So knowing about the dual SNP programs is crucial in working the chronic SNP network as well, to make certain that you can maximize the benefits that are available to the folks you serve. When you look at it, there are a ton of people that need your help. 90% of the seniors have at least one chronic illness, 77% have 2 or more chronic conditions, and the dual beneficiary population is at least 20% of the Medicare population nationwide, and people are aging in 10,000 baby boomers a day over the next 20 years. So some of the things we want to make certain that we do is when we go and visit folks, that we're doing a presentation that is all it needs to be to take care of your clients, to make certain that they understand the program and all its unique specialized care, and that you do it in a circumstance that is thorough and compliant to all the guidelines. It's very important to note that you're personally responsible for every lead and appointment. So different carriers will come to you, and CMS now says it reserves the right to come directly to a producer to question them on certain marketing practices. So if a complaint is filed, the CMS might go to the carrier, they might come to you, inform your upline, they might go directly to you and ask you, hey, how'd you get the information to see that person? And was everything approved ahead of time? Are you using plan approved, plan specific materials? And this includes everything through direct mail to any advertising you might do, and include the phone scripts that you use to reply to and follow up with the people that have raised their hands about interest in your program. It is important to note that you can have contact with your existing customers, so the folks that you have sold into or are currently enrolled in another health plan, or have sold another non-health related insurance products, such as life insurance, final expense, dental coverages, critical illness programs. These are folks that you can engage on an ongoing basis compliantly to market to. Some things you can't do. Calls can only be made to prospects who initiate the contact, they've sent back a reply card, or have called and asked for additional information. So you can't do answering machine messages, cold call for this type of program. We're also not allowed to go back to folks who have disenrolled, or just mail something out and then follow up to make certain they receive it. You can't lobby in the lobby, so to speak, so you can't approach people in common areas, and you've got to make certain that if you are part of an event, that you have been given permission to contact an individual to market to them. We see a lot of lead activity being generated through third parties, a lot of things through social media and electronic means through websites. It's important to note that you need to make certain that that lead was generated through in a compliant fashion, and if you have doubts, it's safest not to follow up on it. Pre-appointments are always a good idea. Setting the appointment in advance and gathering that scope of appointment prior to the time of appointment is always a solid best practice. And keep in mind that if you're working with a specific carrier who is helping you market, if they are dialing through lead responses and setting appointments, then many times they'll take the scope and create that electronically, but it's always our responsibility to make certain that all of the obligations have been fulfilled. It is important to note as well that even though CMS would like you to have the scope of appointment in place to visit with people 48 hours in advance of the appointment, you can have it done, obtained just prior to the appointment if you weren't able to get it earlier, but you have to be prepared to submit documentation as to why it wasn't feasible to get it earlier. There are certain things that are specific to Care Improvement Plus chronic SNP programs, and these include the verification of that chronic condition. Remember at the beginning of the presentation we mentioned one of the eligibility factors that a person has to consider is, can you have not only that condition in place, but can it be verified? And CMS changes its rules periodically on the time frame that's allowed for that verification. It's currently 21 calendar days of the notice of the receipt of the application or the end of the month that's received, whichever is longer, or the application has to be denied. It used to be 60 days. Now it's not. And the carrier can no longer use claims information to verify that chronic illness. If a person has lost their Medicaid eligibility and they have only A and B, but it's no longer covered by the state, the cost of those premiums, if they're in play, they have 6 months to regain eligibility before the membership is potentially ended, and the member won't experience any cost sharing during that 6-month period. That's important to know, because if you get into the dual special needs plans, you'll notice that the benefits are very basic in the plan itself, and the cost sharing is picked up by the Medicaid programs. So that's why most of the carriers will say their dual SNP programs are appropriate only for people who are a full dual beneficiary, so they don't encounter the additional cost on the medical side through those programs. The verification process also requires then that as part of the chronic illness SNP programs, there's an authorization to use and disclose health information, and if it's not part of that application, United Healthcare will get them that release, because it's required by many provider offices to release that information to verify whether or not someone has the applicable chronic illness. We have as agents 3 options to ensure the applicant's illness is verified, and that is using the United Healthcare verification unit to verify the illness, or depending upon a third party with a large insurance carrier to take care of that for us, or we can take the forms to the physician office that is the provider who will be verifying that after the app is submitted, and submit them thereafter. And there are many times where you can do it as part of the application process with the consumer, making certain that they help be involved in that verification process to make certain that they get the coverage that they're applying for. During part of the appointment, it is important to make certain we remain compliant and provide our name and the organizations we represent, and review that purpose of the appointment through the scope of appointment form, and do not communicate or imply that we're a representative of or affiliated with Medicare, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It is very important that if the prospect decides to join the program, we help with the applications. I am not a big fan of having a prospect complete their own application. 1, you don't control their penmanship. 2, they may miss something that's part of that application process. And if a power of attorney is involved, we need to make certain that we secure copies of that POA for proper processing of the application. If it is a chronic SNP plan, we do need the signed release, that thing we mentioned just a moment ago, the extra form that gives the carrier the legal right to check and verify that illness. And if a person has low-income subsidy, it's helpful to have copies of that letter to supply the carrier as well, to make certain that the additional assistance is applied to the program. And it's very important to explain what happens next to the individual. Walk them through the steps of the enrollment process, how they're going to get their membership packet, their membership card, and subsequent correspondence from the carrier that we engage with. Always leave the applicant with a copy of the application if it's not done electronically, the entire pre-enrollment kit, and make certain that that beneficiary has your contact information, so if there are challenges they can reach you. It's also important to review the enrollment checklist that all the carriers have that give you the information you need to make certain you're doing a thorough and compliant application. Some of the things that are important to remember is the fact that enrolling a person in a Medicare Advantage plan, be it a chronic SNP program, a dual SNP program, and they're already in one, that will disenroll them from their previous coverage, but it won't do that with a Medicare supplement plan. They can continue to keep their Medicare supplement plan should they choose to do so, but they aren't able to access any benefit from it while they're on a Medicare Advantage plan. The Medicare supplement plan bases its payment on claims filed with original Medicare. When someone joins a Medicare supplement plan, that insurance carrier becomes their primary and secondary coverage. It's also important to note in that we don't represent a Medicare Advantage plan as a Medicare supplement plan, and that it is not a standalone Part D plan. The enrollment forms themselves, the carriers will require a turnaround time from the time of completion to the time they are submitted. CIP gives an individual 48 hours to do so. It's awfully important that in the latter part of the month we do that on an expedited basis and make certain that we turn the applications in as quickly as possible, because, well, they take a little longer to process than a regular Medicare Advantage app, with all the verification and some of the other things that are involved, the additional forms that might be a factor as well. It's awfully important to have the applications complete and legible. Back in the day when I was the regional for a dual SNP plan, we had over 80% of our applications pended. It required additional contact or investigation with the agent to complete the processing of those applications, and the vast majority of the reason for that, they couldn't read our handwriting. So if you're going to do a paper application and fax it to our offices, or secure email it to our office, so we can process it for you, scrub it and process it for you, it's awfully important to remember, hey, let's help them be able to read my handwriting. Really a cool piece of this right now is that becomes less of a concern, since the chronic SNP plans are now available to be tendered through the lean electronic enrollment process that United Healthcare has as well. So if you are not familiar with that application process, watch for some of the follow-up for today's presentation, because it will give you information on that as well, and it'll really help address a whole bunch of the challenges that we have with an incomplete app. Can't submit it if it's not complete, and it also helps you deal with any challenges you have with writing in Chickenese instead of your native language. Some things to do specifically in the special needs plans world is to follow up with the member on a consistent basis. One, to make certain that they're taking advantage of all the benefits that you have made available to them through the carrier, and to make certain that we can ask for referrals in a compliant fashion. So they can't be part of the request at a sales appointment. We can do some follow-up to make certain that our now client helps us market the programs that we have available as well. Some of the things that we have available to help us: the agent support desk, the producer help desk at United Healthcare is available through both a toll-free number and email. They're very strong in their support, really help answer any particulars with health benefits questions in a particular area. And then, of course, United is famous for its local training and support programs. You have agent managers in many markets that want to help you sell their programs, and so it's really important to get to know these individuals. If you are contracted with United and don't know who that would be, well, we can help you at least get set up with or become aware of who your local contact is right into that company. You do have a ton of information available on the producers portal too, www.unitedhealthproducers.com. It allows you to track your applications, watch your commission flow. It gives you access to the agent toolkit for compliant marketing material, allows you to order your pre-enrollment kits, gives you some tips on different compliance rulings and information that's made available to you. It also provides provider and pharmacy search tools and a drug lookup tool specific to the different formularies that are involved. So when you go in there, you're able to get all kinds of support material and make certain that you are accessing all of the support that is available to you. We are also here at the brokerage to make certain that we help you engage in this market as well. You can reach us through our toll-free number or visit us through our website, and we can help you market these programs effectively and compliantly. So you also have an option outside of United Healthcare in many areas that is still available. There are two other options. One is currently under sanction with CMS, so we cannot speak to it, and it is not available obviously as a marketing option to you now. But Humana does make chronic condition special needs plans available as well, and they have a ton of information on their website that can help you with the fundamentals of both a C-SNP and a D-SNP plan. So engaging in the pursuit of chronic illness individuals or folks that qualify for dual beneficiary status, there's some really cool things that can help you walk right through their website and pull the information that you need to make certain that you have also satisfied the certification process that comes as part of it as well. Because one of the things you'll note is there are additional certifications with these carriers for this product. It's another module that you have to complete for chronic illness and another one for D-SNP. And you walk through it. In the Humana world, it's in the agent education file. It allows you to go into the learning portal and pull a course catalog and view the link that will take you right to the information that you need. And it'll give you a really good background as to why you would want to do this. If you consider that very carefully, look back and think of the difference between the chronically ill and the folks that qualify for a dual SNP plan. Sometimes there's overlap, quite a bit of it in many circumstances. Many of the folks that are financially impaired, so to speak, are so because of dealing with their illness. And so there are some different things here that come into play, and this is really a neat source of information for you for engaging in this market. It allows you also to enroll in the course and take care of it right online and take care of the requirements you have with that carrier. Some of the things that we can help you as well is help you get started in chasing this particular type of prospect. It might be something as simple as correspondence to your own book of business that you hadn't considered for these types of programs. Because remember, chronic SNP program, unlike a traditional Medicare supplement plan that outside of a guarantee issue period requires underwriting, these plans offer the full spectrum of benefits if they can satisfy that one health question and the other requirements. So some things to consider there, and we can help you get in front of folks with some of the different marketing programs that we have in place. The direct mail programs, use of retail, some different things else in the community, such as working with faith-based organizations, working with providers, doing some different things to reach out and get in front of the folks that are not only interested in what we have to offer, but also possess the ability to buy it. So what we'd like for you to do is, if this is of interest to you, please reach out to us. We're going to be following up with the folks who have raised their hand and are participating in today's webinar as well. There'll be follow-up that follows by the end of the day through email with a link to the recording of today's presentation and additional information that we've talked about through the course of the presentation as well. So watch for that. If this is of interest to you and you beat us to reaching you, well, that's great. We'd love to talk to you. We'll do some follow-up and make certain that we do everything we can to help you be successful in this niche market. That said, I want to thank you for coming on the line with me today, about 5 minutes over that 45-minute period. And I want to thank you for investing your time with us today, and we look forward to speaking with you down the road. Thanks so very much, and we'll talk to you soon.